it's Trina, and today I am bringing you my 2016 reading goals check-in as well as my new reading goals for 2017. At the beginning of last year, I did set 10 goals for myself, and just a few months into the year, I realized that some of them weren't going to work out the way that I wanted, or I had already lost interest in some of them. So in the middle of 2016, I actually reevaluated those goals that I had set for myself, and I came out of that reevaluation with a new total of 8 goals, and I did do a video for both the original setting of the goals and the mid-year check-in and reevaluation. So since I've already done 2 videos explaining why I set those particular goals for myself, I am not going to rehash the reasons. I'm just going to quickly show you my check-in with last year's goals. I completed 5 out of the 8 goals that I set for myself last year, and I am perfectly okay with that. However you may feel about setting goals or not setting goals for yourself for whatever reasons, personally, I really enjoy doing that. I find that they do motivate me and kind of give me a little bit of direction. However, I never beat myself up if I don't complete everything that I set out for myself. Now let's talk about the new goals that I want to set for myself this year. Number 1, I want to read more adult books this year. I have absolutely nothing against YA. You guys know I love YA books. I get a lot of depth and meaning out of them, so this isn't that I want to read more adult books because I'm tired of YA. It's not like that. This is just a fact that I have always read both adult and YA books, and I noticed that in 2016 I read fewer adult books than ever, and I don't know really how I feel about that because I don't want to be ignoring that age demographic completely. So I just wanted this year read more adult books than I did last year. My second goal is that I want to read more own voices books. Now, if you aren't familiar with what own voices means, this is referring to a book that is about a main character that has the same type of identity as the author. So for example, if a black author writes about a black main character, that is own voices. Last year, the majority of the books I read were diverse. They did feature a main character that was a diverse race or sexuality or mental or physical disability. However, not even half of the diverse books that I read last year were actually own voices. So this year I just want to support own voices more because it is something that I am interested in supporting. I also want to read more debuts this year. I think it's really cool to be able to say, like, I read their first book and I still like them 5 books later, because I've had a few authors that's been my experience with, and last year I didn't quite meet my goal of wanting to have read 8 debuts. Like I read 7 and then DNF'd the 8th one, so I'm not going to count it because technically I look at the number 7 and I think, why wasn't that number 12? So this year I still want to focus on reading debuts, and hopefully at the end of this year I'll end up with a number that I'll feel better about. The next goal is that I want to read around the world more, and what I mean by this is that the majority of the books that I read are set in the US or the UK. I do want to read outside of just like this one world outlook, you know what I mean? So last year I did track my reading locations where all the books that I read were set. I didn't have very many set in Australia. I read one book that was barely set in South America. That is a continent that I have never really read anything set in before. I've very rarely read books set in Africa. I've never read anything set in Antarctica, although I know there are books that are set there. And along with this goal, not only do I want to read books that are set in more of a variety of locations, I also want to read books by authors from those locations, not necessarily exclusively, but that is also something that I want to look at in terms of this goal. And I would really appreciate it if you guys had any book recommendations set in any of those locations to share with me down in the comments. I also want to read more books that my friends are recommending to me. Last year what I did was I asked 10 friends and booktubers to recommend a specific book to me, and I found that very difficult to do because when I'm faced with, hey, you should read this exact book, and then when I'm not in the mood for that book, or like my attention is being diverted to all the new releases and the things that I'm currently getting hyped up about, I'm just not going to pick up a specific book. Like, that's not something that works for me. So this year, instead of asking for specific recommendations, I just want to pay more attention to the books that people are recommending in like their monthly recommendations or in their top favorite books of last year. Like people who I talk to a lot, I really just want to make sure that if they're reading books that I'm recommending, I want to read books that they're recommending as well so that we can talk about them more. So I do want to be better at reading books that my friends highly recommend. And my final reading goal for 2017 is that I want to read my own books, and this is the same goal that I had last year. And what I mean by this is that I want to read the books that I personally own and have not read yet. My number of unread books that I own is 12. That is one of the lower numbers that I hear of on BookTube, but the reason for that is because like the majority of the books that I read are from the library. I don't buy books that often until like after I've read them and know that I like them. But sometimes I do buy a book because I'm looking forward to it, and then I kind of get distracted by something else, or I'm sent books or given books as gifts. So I want to show you guys the 12 books this year that I own, haven't read, and want to read by the end of 2017. I have Life and Death by Stephanie Meyer, The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness, Books 2 and 3 in the Darkest Minds trilogy by Alexandra Bracken. I have Wild Swans and A Tyranny of Petticoats by Jessica Spotswood, who's one of my favorite authors, but I still, for whatever reason, have not read these books. I have The Near Witch, A Gathering of Shadows, and This Savage Song, all by Victoria Schwab, who is one of my favorite authors that I am also very, very behind on. The Midnight Star by Marie Lu, Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland, and finally, Kids of Appetite by David Arnold. It's just 12 books, so I know that I can do it. My problem is not being distracted by like all the new releases and all the things that people are currently talking about, because that's the only reason why these have been on my shelf for so long already. That's it for my goals for this year. Please let me know in the comments if you are setting any reading goals for yourself. I'd love to know what a couple of those are. Happy 2017, everybody. I'm looking forward to another year on my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching and for all of your support, and I will see you guys in the comments. Bye!